What is the greatest comeback to an insult you've ever heard? Joe Pine interviewing Frank Zappa. Joe, I guess your long hair makes you a woman. FC, I guess your wooden leg makes you a table. 18th century British radical politician John Wilkes was told in Parliament by a political opponent, "Sir, I do not know whether you will die on the gallows or of the pox." Wilkes shot back with, "That depends, my lord, on whether I embrace your lordship's principles or your mistress. My grandparents used to bicker. My grandmother generally came out on top, as she was fierier. One time, though, she was asking him to do a bunch of stuff, and he muttered, 'If you'd lose some weight, you could do it yourself.' She fixed her gaze on him and glowered, 'I'm thinking of getting rid of about 200 pounds of useless fat immediately.' He replied, 'You're going to cut off your foot?' I used to work with this like 70-year-old woman. She was our supervisor, and one day one of the ladies who worked with us told this old lady to kiss my ass, and the old lady replied, 'Where do I start? You're so fat your crack goes all the way up your back.' I asked my mother why she always wears makeup despite being in her 40s. She told me she wears makeup so she doesn't look like me. A guy makes fun of his bald friend by rubbing his head and saying, 'Wow, your head is as smooth as my wife's bottom.' The friend also rubs his head and says, 'Wow, you're right.' One of my coworkers was cold calling customers, trying to get appointments to drum up business. One of them told him to go fuck his hand, and he responded with, 'I've got that penciled in for 3. I should be done by 4 if you'd like to come in for an appointment then.' The guy laughed his ass off and ended up coming in for the appointment. Winston Churchill, of course. Lady Nancy asked her, 'Winston, if you were my husband, I'd poison your tea.' Churchill, 'Nancy, if I were your husband, I'd drink it.' I was the one insulted, but not the one with the comeback. I was out with a coworker and her friends, and my buddy and I were leaving a little too early for her sensibilities. She jokingly got up in my face and said, 'Smell that? Smells like pussy.' A guy playing at the pool table next to us stepped forward and said, 'I'm sorry, that must be me. I just ate. It was amazing. You sure do talk a lot for never saying anything.' Not heard, but read. Easily the Spartans reply to Philip II of Macedon. As Philip II of Macedon was conquering Greek city-states left and right, Sparta was left alone. Philip had achieved a crushing victory, and Sparta was relatively weak and without walls. Philip sent a message to the Spartans saying, 'If I invade Laconia, you will be destroyed, never to rise again.' The Spartans replied with one word, 'If.' My grandma asked my cousin, who'd had lots of partners and 2 kids at this point, if she was ever going to get married. 'Cousin, it's not the same nowadays. We don't buy cars without test driving them first.' 'Grandma, yeah, but they don't let you put 100,000 miles on them either.' Point goes to Granny. I've been called worse things by better people. A friend of mine was getting bitched at by these 2 identical twin girls in a class I had once. He replied with a troubling look on his face and said, 'If you 2 are identical, how come only one of you are hot?' That dude played the long game, as those 2 girls looked rather perplexed for the rest of the session. Asterisk fixed. In high school, we congregated in our cliques around the benches. One friend is cracking his knuckles and did this fairly often. Another friend saw this and remarked, 'You pop your hands a lot. You must jerk off a lot.' The friend that popped his hands immediately looks at him and calmly says, 'You pop your jaw a lot. You must suck dick a lot.' Weirdly enough, no one laughed. We just all shrugged and took it as a logical explanation. It's been over 20 years, and I still think about the logic. As for the informative comments about changing cliques to cliques, for the sake of the story, I think I'll leave it as is. Context: John Oliver from HBO interviews Stephen Hawking. May he rest in peace. J.O. And there may be a universe where I am more intelligent than you? S.H. There may even be a universe where you are funny. Anything I've thought of more than an hour after the insult. The greatest comeback I witnessed was when Kumail Nanjiani was on Mean Tweets, and someone asked, 'Is your dick multiple colors?' And he said, 'Yes. Every shade of your mom's lipstick.' What are you looking at? I'm still trying to find out. On a construction site one afternoon, different trades were working in the same area. Like silly team sports, the Sparkies always hang with the Sparkies and the Turd Wranglers always hang with the Turd Wranglers, and anytime they're together it turns into a pointless dick measuring contest. Usually not literally. One particularly childish exchange saw 2 men chopping back and forth. 'My dick biggest, blah blah blah.' Finally one of them spits out this classic, 'I've got girth like a can of corn.' And the clap back was unforgettable. 'But you've got length like a can of tuna.' Everyone busted up. Mr. Girth tried to hide his embarrassment, but was tied up. No comeback. And a room of men laughing uncontrollably. Good times. My grandma got into a fight at the grocery store with a guy who told my 9-year-old brother to move the fuck out of the way. They were going at it, and his final words were, 'Suck my dick, bitch.' She said across the store, 'If I could find it, bitch.' The classic. You're adopted. At least my parents chose to have me." Glenn McGrath, Aussie cricketer, got frustrated with Ed O'Brandis as his every attempt to stump Brandis failed. This is what happened next. "McGrath, why are you so fat?" Brandis, "Because every time I fuck your wife, she gives me a biscuit." David Letterman, "I'm not as dumb as I look." Tina Fey, "How could you be? I expected a better insult from someone of your upbringing and education. If you weren't so stupid, what would you be?" asks the husband. The wife replies, without even skipping a beat. Single. Come on, stop telling me how to live my life. I don't tell you how to live your life. It's not like I come down to the docks at night, knocking the sailors' cocks out of your mouth. Me, we should learn from our mistakes. My friend, so that's why you have a younger sister? Definitely a great comeback, but not to an insult, more to an annoyance. I was a camp counselor for a few years at a summer camp. One day my group took a hike to a large rock where we had lunch. My campers were between 8 and 10 years old. This one kid we'll call Jeff keeps poking another kid we'll call Matt in my group to look at this hole in the rock. It's so cool. It's like 6 inches deep. And the other kid is clearly getting annoyed just trying to eat his lunch. He keeps shoving sticks into the hole and trying to get everybody to look at it. Finally, Matt just puts down his sandwich, looks at Jeff, and goes, "I'll be 6 inches deep in your mom later if you don't shut up." I was trying so hard to be stern with this kid for saying something so inappropriate, but I kept cracking up. It was just such a disproportionately ridiculous thing to say coming from a 9-year-old. Stocking longing steers stupendous makeshift shocking afterthought governor meeting sloppy. Was out with a friend who was wearing a silly outfit. Someone came up and said, "Why are you wearing that? It's not Halloween." He replied with, "Then why don't you take off that hideous mask?" I can't remember the best one I've heard, but I can remember the best comeback I ever did. It is also, in fact, the only good comeback I ever did. I was in 7th grade, and we were in the locker room after gym. People were discussing shoe sizes because this one kid had enormous feet. I don't know if I have small feet, but mine were the smallest. They said, "Small feet. You know what that means." I didn't mind too much, but one kid crossed the line. He said, "Don't worry, fella, there's like 10 different ways to make it bigger." So I said, "Have you tried all 10? Not very impressive, but it shut him up. I was bullshitting with a couple of buddies, and may have suggested that I banged one of their moms, to which said friend replied, "My mom's dead." My mouth bypassed my brain and replied, "That explains the dirt. How appropriate, you fight like a cow." Overheard by me, the school bus driver, one 5th grade student was belittling a 1st grader. When it was time for a comeback, 1st grader shouts out, "Congratulations." The bewildered 5th grader had nothing to say and went to sit down with her friends in the back of the bus. A dude in my class called out a semi-friend of mine that people are talking behind his back. In fact, that wasn't the case, as far as I know, and that guy said, "Well, you know what to say about you? Nothing. Nobody fucking cares. I don't care that you broke your elbow." Many years ago, when we were about 18, a friend of mine was arguing with another person we knew. This person was trying to be a badass and intimidate my buddy. He says my feet are registered. Without missing a beat, my friend replies, "Where?" "Health and sanitation." 40 years later, I still crack up at this when it comes to mind. Chelsea Handler told Russell Brand, "The way you are looking at me makes me want to cover my vagina." He replied, "Ma'am, if I had a rubber glove, I'd do it for you." Crowd burst into laughter, and she even acknowledged that was good. On an Indian roast show, there were 2 bald twin brothers, and the roaster told them, "You two confuse me on a biological level. You two look like testicles, but you are both assholes. I am still waiting for an opportunity to use that." "Son, Dad, you don't know how to make a joke." "Dad, I made you. It's gotta be the aliens locker room scene for me." Hudson, "Hey Vasquez, have you ever been mistaken for a man?" Vasquez, "No, have you?" "I have a bunch, but one of the more memorable ones was back in 8th grade. For context, I didn't make the basketball team 7th grade, but I made the team in 8th grade. This kid that was on the team the previous year, but didn't make it currently, was really upset and telling me how bad I am and blah blah blah. I told him that if he is better than me, then why didn't he make the team? And he replied with, "It's just cause of my grades, bro." So I replied with, "Oh, so you're just fucking stupid then?" He gave up cause it was either accept that he was bad or accept he was an idiot. So English class in middle school. Kid A, "Yo, Kid B, your mama waited on me at McDonald's last night. Must feel like shit having a mom that works at McDonald's." Kid B, "At least my mom gets out of bed to go to work." English teacher far louder than he realized, "DAYUM." The rest of us were laughing so hard. The teacher next door popped her head in to see what was going on. I was 14 or 15 and had a quiet nerdy friend with really bad acne. My older brother had these 3 friends, all brothers 2, 3, and 4 years older than me and my friend. They were all gangsta and started their own gang, which I always thought was really funny. Me and my friend walked in the front door. My brother and his friends were all sitting at the TV playing Halo. One of the brothers looked at my friend and said, "Holy shit, Sam. I got 2 words for you, acne pads." Sam replied, "Cool, and I got 2 words for you, Johnny, speech therapy." The guy had a pretty bad stutter. He jumped right up and started trying to fight my friend. As long as I could remember after that, he wanted to fight Sam, but we just ignored them. I don't know why this stuck with me for so long. It was such perfect delivery and shut down of a bully. I was 13 years old, carrying a bunch of books for the teacher. Some joker thought it was funny to pretend to fall right in front of me. And NBSB. I told him, "Don't fall for me, man." And NBSB. My whole book carrying crew and his prank crew all started bursting into laughter. I didn't register what had happened until much later. So there was two girls fighting, and one of them looks at my sister who was minding her own business and says, "You go to hell too." My sister, "Do you want me to say anything to your mom?" Dude bragging, "I got a big dick." Friend, "What happened? Someone break one off in your ass." This happened about 5 years ago now. There was this one annoying kid in my math class in high school, being loud, ignoring the teacher. He was mixed race, only bringing this up because it's related. He's talking rather loudly with a guy next to him. Teacher tells him, "Shut the hell up." Kid makes a point that he's half black and being mean to him is racist, some stupid shit like that. Teacher looks him dead in the eyes and says, "I was talking to your white half, stupid." Hands asterisk down my favorite teacher. My best friend. After an argument with some kid from our school in a shop, we began walking away down the street. Kid, "Where you going, pussy?" Friend, "Your mom's house." Kid, "My mom lives the other way, idiot." Friend, "Nah, I meant your real mom." This short guy at a bar was talking shit to my friend, and he said, "I'm going to be the bigger man," and walk away. To which my friend replied, "You will never be the bigger man. You know those people who tell you to be yourself? Don't listen to them." He's come up with more creative insults, but this is the most memorable. 1. Back in the day, being openly gay could be downright dangerous, but George didn't really GAF. Someone called him a queen, and he responded, "I'll have you know, my mother is still alive, which makes me a princess." 2. Once worked a Karen, who was actually named Karen. In addition to being TCH on wheels, she was also next-level morbidly obese. One day, I was on the phone with one of our clients who, in the course of the conversation, complained about her to me. I took the complaint to our team lead. She said, "Yeah, I get a lot of complaints about her, but she says the clients don't like her because she's heavy." Before I could stop myself, I shot back with, "But Joe, if I were blind, I'd still think she's TCH. Boy, my dick is so hard. Girl, to find." My brother was in his history class that just happened to have accumulated all the really disruptive and not so intelligent kids. They'd constantly interrupt and make the class hell, and the teacher didn't really do anything about it. One day, a girl who had caused a ton of problems acted up in the usual way to derail the class, and he had had enough. He turned to her and told her to shut up, and she flipped. The teacher told her to be careful what she says to him, because she might be working for him one day. My brother turns to the teacher and goes, "Nah, I don't plan on being a pimp." The class loses it. The teacher has to step out from laughing, and that girl apparently didn't bother my brother for the rest of the year. Your dick is of the size of Tic Tac. No wonder why your mom has good breath every day. A French manager and a Karen was arguing. Karen, "Customers are kings." Managers, "You're in France. Here we decapitate kings." Good old bit of cricket sledging aimed at an incoming batsman. Bowler, "Hey, how's your wife and my kids?" Batsman, "The wife's fine. The kids are retarded." In high school, me and my boyfriend, we were gay. We're walking together, and some dumbass came up and said, "Why are you guys always together? What, are you gay?" So my man said, "Why? Are you interested?" I went to Catholic school, and the teacher said, "There's a special place in hell for people like you." And I said back, "See you there." Prob Dylan's last phrase of Positively 4th Street. I wish that for just one time you could stand inside my shoes. And just for that one moment, I could be you. Yes, I wish that for just one time you could stand inside my shoes. You'd know what a drag it is to see you. Overheard some little kids bickering on the train. Little boy, maybe 6 or 7, says to younger girl, maybe 4, "You can't even read." She says, "Oh yeah? Well, at least I don't eat my boogers." I was in Target, 2 kids, and their mom walked past. One kid was singing. The other kid said, "Those aren't even the right words." The singing kid responded without missing a beat, "Yeah, well, this is the remix." Conversation between myself and a former coworker after he made a mistake I told him he was going to make, but insisted it was the right to do it. Coworker, "Oh, look at me, I'm co-TTR 21, I never make mistakes." Me, "I wish your parents could say the same about you, man." Shrugging light skin tone. Coworker, stares deep into my souls with nothing to say. In class, someone used the F slur on someone, and he replied with, "I'm probably as straight as the pole your mom dances on." In Aliens, there's a big bully soldier asking a lesbian soldier if she has ever mistakenly been taken for a man. As a response, she says, "No, have you? I have a twin brother. I'm older. He once told me when I came out, they knew it was a mistake and immediately tried again. I told him he was the buy one get one of equal or lesser value free. There was a fight after that one. An Arab poet met a guy on the streets. Trying to belittle the poet, the guy said, "I saw you from afar, I thought you were a woman." The poet responded, "I saw you from afar and thought you were a man." There are approximately 1,010,300 words in the English language, but I could never string enough words together to properly express how much I want to hit you with a chair. Alexander Hamilton to Thomas Jefferson. That's what she said, but she didn't say it to you. The scene, a bar. The players, my mate, the girl. At the time, my mate sported an, admittedly questionable, schmig or goatee, about 6 inches long and braided. He was enjoying his pint when the girl, apropos of nothing, turned around, tugged gently on his goatee, and said, "Aren't you brave going out with that?" Mate smiled, reached over, gently pinched an exposed fold of her muffin top. She was overweight and quite scantily clad, and replied, "And aren't you brave going out with that? I'd call you a cunt, but I assume you lack the depth and the warmth." Person A, "Fuck you, buddy." Person B, "I bet you would if I had tits on my back." Between to ferns with Obama. Zach, "It must kinda stink that you can't run 3 times. Obama, "No, actually I think it's a good idea. If I ran a 3rd time would be kinda like doing a 3rd Hangover movie. Didn't really work out very well, didn't it? I was getting a lift from my boss when there was a bit of a road rage incident. Guy pulls out in front of us and my boss had to brake. He honks the horn at this guy. Guy leans out the window and calls my boss, who is a bit chunky, a fat bastard. My boss shouts over, "I'm only fat because every time I fuck your mother she bakes me a cake." Guy gets red-faced and starts shouting uncontrollably as my boss floors it and leaves him fuming. I'm sure I've heard better retorts, but this is one I vividly remember. When I was about 12, I stopped doing my homework, which frustrated my parents, as I had been a good student. My mom, also frustrated with my father, exploded on me like never before. "You son of bitch." I replied, "Well, what does that make you?" I locked myself in my room for hours. Marilyn Monroe once had someone tell her, "The only reason you look so beautiful is your expensive clothes." The next day she went and did a photo shoot in nothing but a potato sack. I plan on getting that as a tattoo. The one I come up with an hour later when I'm alone in the shower. Not a comeback in the strict sense, but the best shutdown I've seen, and the fact that it was my high school age daughter makes it even better for me. Some princess type mean girl comes up and comments on my daughter's punked out style. Daughter just looks her in the eye, then slowly looks her up and down, then smirks, cocks an eyebrow, and walks away. Princess was just frozen, as if it had never occurred to her that a lower status person could ever choose not to give a rat's ass about what she had to say. Mark Ruffalo to Josh Whitcomb. They were discussing their fears on Graham Norton, and Josh was about to say his when Mark pipes up that Josh is afraid of girls over 12. Said this to my mom. I was on the toilet about 5 minutes before we left for a doctor's appointment. I really had to poop. She called my name and said, "Where are you?" I told her where I was. "Well, get your ass busy and come on." I replied, "Where do you think the poop comes from? Aren't you a little young to be building a roller coaster?" Yes I am. Fair enough. My brother got a terrible haircut from Supercuts. He didn't know it was a place for learning barbers. They basically shaved his head. He was so pissed. So the next day at work our boss, on break in front of everyone, said to my brother, "So you're trying to copy your videos and got cancer, huh?" My brother makes super edgy / gay / dark comedy skits. And our boss is 5'4". Very short. My brother immediately snapped back with, "Yeah, well, at least I can ride all the rides at Six Flags." We all died from laughing. Fun bonus story. Later that night the boss, who was pretty cool, tried to say something again which I don't remember. I just remember what my bro said, which was, "Just because I can reach the cookies from the top of the fridge doesn't mean you gotta be crying all night." Pretty good, but not as funny as the first one, Mo. An acquaintance of mine had his wife stolen by his best friend after a long, secret affair. A few months after the swapping of the wife from one friend to the other, the two men had their first face-to-face encounter at a family gathering. My friend says to the ex-best friend, "How's that used p \\\\* why working out for you?" Ex-best friend replies, "It ain't bad once you get past the used part." In my book, that is one of the greatest of all-time responses. An older guy I used to work with was overweight. Had big old belly that hung out past his belt. This skinny punk always made fun of him, even touched his belly and would say comments like, "When are you expecting?" etc. Finally, he had enough one day. The skinny guy said, "Damn, your belly is so big." The old guy replied, "It's because your wife likes sucking dick in the shade." Being a lesbian, I get that you never had a real man pretty often. Someone stood up for me. Well, no one around here. You're talking a lot of shit for a dude in cum shot distance. Kid in my class with big ears called my a fairy. Being the cool, fantasy enthusiast I am, I snapped back calling him an elf. He smacked my head on a brick wall for my efforts, but still.